listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
Well, happy Thursday, everyone. Thank you so much for letting us spend some time with you. I am being closely monitored and supervised.
Hello, everyone.
Something I realized earlier today is I now have two females in the house that think they have to supervise me because Susie thinks she needs to be where I'm at. That's what you get when you have a 13-week-old puppy. Oh, well. It's all good. It's all good. It's all fun. If you're new here, we do have fun while we do this. It's just something we do. It's worth it. Life is way too short to be miserable.
Absolutely.
If you haven't been to GiveGod90.com lately, you might want to go there, especially probably, today's Thursday, maybe Monday or Tuesday. I will update that again. I had another interview with Logan Crawford, and there's some things on there you might be interested in. I did give him a little heads up, so he doesn't have that shocked look on his face this time. So it's always kind of entertaining and enjoyable when you can surprise someone who is supposed to be a professional interviewer, and they hear something they don't expect to hear because they're used to talking to people who just kind of say the same thing over and over and over again, maybe just in a different way. And when you say something completely different and make sense of it, it takes them by surprise. So that's there. What am I thinking? Oh, the like buttons and the share buttons work really good. Hopefully the advertisements are done. The other day, we spent some time trying to explain when you see someone and you actually look at their eyes, what you're looking for. You're looking for the brightness in them so that you know what spirit they're following. And to follow up with that, we're going to look at kind of how to identify an enemy. Somebody you don't want to be around, right? Excuse me. The saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer, right? That's often been attributed recently to Sun Tzu. Of course, he's known for writing The Art of War. And it would make sense that people would, think that he said that. But it's actually written for a movie, The Godfather 2. The writer actually had some insight there, didn't he? And movies sometimes writers come up with really good lines. Sometimes they don't, but sometimes they do. Sun Tzu, in his Art of War, deals mostly with strategies of warfare, not really identifying who the enemy is. When you go to war, you've already identified them, and now you're looking for a way to defeat them. But before you can defeat an enemy, you have to know who or what it is. You have to identify it. And that's not always easy. And through the course of history, we have, for some strange reason, we've allowed kings and queens, dictators, national leaders to identify and tell us who our enemy is. Especially in the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years. National leaders say, that nation over there, those people, they're bad. We need to go to war. We need to defeat them. So the more I thought about that, I remember a movie years ago, and I'm going to paraphrase a line. And the line is, governments don't live together. People live together. And if you're familiar with that, You know it was delivered by the actor Clint Eastwood in his movie Outlaw Josie Wales. And he's speaking to an Indian chief. And Eastwood's character is speaking to the chief, hoping to avoid an armed conflict. He really doesn't want to fight these guys. The chief in the movie realizes, that what he's hearing is pretty much true. And he understands that it was the United States government that broke the treaty with the Indian nation. And he realized, it wasn't the fault of the person standing in front of him. Or actually, he was sitting on a horse when he delivers the line. But it wasn't his fault. And this is a fictional example of a very real state of affairs that can exist between people when we allow our governments to interfere in our lives. Now, the average person who lives in any country, they often receive only the information that their particular government wants them to know, even in the United States. And in the United States, for example, for years and years and years, we were told that, actually it was the former Soviet Union, it's a bad country. They're all communist, and all the communist people are bad, and it's just terrible. Now, I happen to know some folks who were born in the former Soviet Union, and I can tell you, they're not all bad people. Myra worked with one. She was a really nice lady. The strange thing is, the folks that grew up under that communist regime were taught that Americans were bad people. Now, there are some bad Americans. Let's face it, it doesn't matter where you live in the world. You're going to find good people. You're going to find bad people. It doesn't matter what religion they are. It doesn't matter what color they are. It doesn't matter what language they speak. There's going to be good people and there's going to be bad people. It's just that simple because people have to live together. Now, the person who wrote the line, "Governments don't live together, people live together," was right. Governments should, and I'm painting a broad brush here, they should exist primarily to protect the citizens who reside in whatever nation or whatever kingdom that they live in. They're there to make sure that, roads get built, people can travel. They're there for political and civil purposes. Companies have to be able to produce things and they have to have a place to sell these things. They have to be able to provide their employees with, a fair wage so that they can live. Another purpose is maintaining order within the boundaries. Certain nations have certain laws. Other nations have often similar but slightly different laws. They have different ways they enforce these laws. But these things are either political or civil. And here's where things get interesting because people live together. People, we, are the ones who are either good neighbors or we are the ones who cause problems, right? People move and they migrate for various reasons, whether it's employment or retirement. For example, years ago, there were a lot of people who worked and worked and worked, and all they wanted to do was retire and move to Florida, where it was warm. The cost of living was kind of affordable back then. Today, there's a lot of other retirement destinations that people have their sights set on, right? Because, let's face it, Florida got expensive. It's still warm. It's just a lot more expensive. When people move around, they have to learn how to live where they go. And it's up to the ones moving there to figure this out. And it's up to the ones who are already there to help bring these folks into their way of life, I guess is a good way to say it. Because when you move somewhere, you don't want to be the one that causes problems. You don't want to be the outcast. You want to kind of fit in, right? Because if you're the outcast, you're not going to enjoy where you are. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. And this isn't a problem that exists only in the United States. This is everywhere. Europe has their own challenges. South America has its challenges. Asia has its challenges. But it really revolves around when someone moves into an area, they have to figure out how to fit in. They have to figure out how to be a good neighbor. Sometimes people move, and what do? They take their bad habits with them. They take their idea that, well, I had A, B, and C where I used to live, even though my taxes were higher and it was a different part of the world. Now I'm here and I expect the same thing, even though my taxes are lower. And people here do things for themselves more than, you just don't pick up the phone and say there's trash that needs to be picked up on a certain road or something like that. So you have to figure out how to adapt. And again, the reality is no matter where you live, there's going to be good people. There's going to be bad people. So how do we know who's who? How do we figure this out? And again, in the last episode, we talked about looking at someone's eyes to know what spirit they're following. Are they following a spirit? And it might not necessarily be what we would consider the Holy Spirit or the Creator, but are they following a spirit that leads them to do good things for the people around them? Or are they following a spirit that would bring chaos to the community? We live together. We have to be able to tell the difference. When we think about friends and enemies, that's when we really have to be careful to know the difference. Someone we might consider a friend may only be a friend as long as you agree with their point of view. Somebody you might think of as an enemy might not be that terrible person you thought they were. In fact, sometimes somebody you thought was an enemy might be trying to help you. Sometimes the person you think is trying to help you is your enemy. If it sounds confusing, let's be honest, it can be. It can be. It's very, very difficult to, I don't really want to say judge someone, but it's very difficult to judge someone's actions based on a single meeting, based on, a 2 or 3 minute introduction. It's very difficult to tell what someone might be thinking or doing or what they might have in mind if you only see them for a very, very short period of time. People are strange, right? We all know strange people, I'm sure. People can be strange creatures. We jump to conclusions, we reach decisions without knowing all the facts. We tend to be a little selfish sometimes too, right? But people have to live together. Sometimes a little kindness, a little understanding can turn the person we thought was an enemy into a good neighbor. And in some situations, they may become friends. And that's why the Bible instructs us how to treat those that seem to be our enemy, right? In fact, if you want to read a couple of those verses there.
If your enemy is hungry, give him food to eat. If he is thirsty, give him water to drink. Proverbs chapter 5, verse 21. A person who refuses correction hates himself, but a person who accepts correction gains understanding. Proverbs 15, verse 32. But I tell you, love your enemies. Pray for those who hurt you. Matthew chapter 5, verse 44.
So, something we should remember. Even though they may turn out to be a real enemy, they're still a person. And because they're a person made in the image of the Creator, they need to be treated with the dignity that even an enemy deserves. Even when a society determines that someone needs to be put to death for a crime they may have committed, that death needs to be quick and painless as possible so that they can maintain that dignity until they draw their last breath. But that's something for another lesson. So, who is really your enemy? That's what we want to concentrate on. For people who choose the God of Abraham and who believe the concepts of right or wrong come from our Creator, our greatest enemy is someone who would drive a wedge between you and your Creator. Think about that. Think about that. There's an interesting verse that kind of leads to that, if you want to read that next one.
Whoever refuses to obey any command from God and teaches other people not to obey that command will be the least important in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever obeys the law and teaches other people to obey the law will be great in the kingdom of heaven. Matthew chapter 5, verse 19.
So, now, stick with me here, because what I'm going to say is going to surprise some folks. Although if you've been listening for a while, you shouldn't be surprised when I say this. Any pastor, any priest, any Bible teacher who would instruct anyone to ignore or reject the sacred word of our Creator, that is your real enemy. Because what they're doing is exactly what Jesus was talking about when he said, whoever refuses to obey any command or teaches others not to obey. Just because someone may be a different color, maybe a different religion, it doesn't automatically make them an enemy. It's when they attempt to have you take some action that would cause you to reject the Creator. That is what makes them an enemy. Years ago, I had a fellow working for me, and we weren't close. He was employee, I was supervisor, and we were out one day, and it got to be lunchtime, and I said, where do we want to eat? What's close by? And I mentioned the place. He said, well, I can't eat there. Why not? He said, well, because I'm a Muslim. I kind of looked at him. I said, well, you're not a very good one. He kind of got this surprised look on his face. He says, what do you mean? And now I was honest with him. I said, look, I don't know everything there is to know about being a Muslim. I still don't. But I knew enough to know that his actions did not prove his faith. And I started going through, and I said, well, you don't do this, you don't do that. And then I said, and then the things you do, I know don't align with your faith. And it was amazing because I wasn't trying to convert him. I wasn't trying to insult him. I was just saying, okay, you're a Muslim, that's fine, but you don't act like one. I've said the same thing to some Christians. Well, a lot more Christians than Muslims, really. Now, apparently it made an impression on him because a few days later, he said, I talked to some folks at the mosque where I go, and you're right. Now, I wasn't trying to be right. I was just trying to show him that if you're going to be something, you need to act like what you want to be. He didn't see me as at that point as a boss, as an enemy, as a friend. He saw me as someone who was really trying to help him live his faith. I listened to Nehemiah Gordon a few years ago, and he was speaking about sitting on an airplane next to a new Christian lady, and she was trying to figure out this newfound faith that she had. Now, if you don't know who Dr. Nehemiah Gordon is, he's a Karaite Jew. He happens to be a language expert. He's written, now several books about various things of faith, both from a Jewish point of view, but most kind of about the New Testament. And he's written some things with Keith Johnson, basically about the name of God and the Lord's Prayer. So he's very well grounded. He knows his stuff. Now, think about this. Does having a Jewish person explain Christianity make him an enemy to Christians? Of course not. He was attempting to do what he could to help her in her faith. He wasn't trying to convert her. He wasn't trying to change anything. He was just trying to explain biblical concepts, biblical principles to a new Christian. People have to live together. Now, does that mean we're all going to sit around a campfire and hold hands and sing Kumbaya? No, it doesn't. And it's just not going to happen. You know, the old Coca-Cola commercial years ago where they had people standing out. I can't remember the name of the song now that they were singing, but they were all singing the Coke song, as we used to call it. That's just not going to happen. Not going to happen. Are there going to be conflicts without resolution? Absolutely. You can bet on it. We're people. We have different points of view. We see things differently. Not everybody is going to follow a spirit that leads to peace, tranquility. Some are going to follow the spirit of chaos. Some are going to follow unholy, evil spirits. It's that simple. Can someone who claims to be a Christian lead another Christian away from our Creator? You better believe they can. They absolutely can. Can someone who is of a different faith help you strengthen your own faith through their actions? Absolutely. They can do that. It's possible. I've seen it done. We shouldn't really be quick to think of someone as a real enemy until we know for sure what spirit they're following. And if they will try to encourage us to follow some unholy spirit, something different than what we should be doing, we have a warning from Moses about that. Go ahead and read that. And this might surprise some people.
A prophet or someone who tells the future with dreams might come to you. He might say he will show you a miracle or a sign. The miracle or sign might even happen. Then he might say, let's serve other gods. These are gods you have not known, and let's worship them. But you must not listen to that prophet or dreamer. The Lord your God is testing you. He is finding out if you love him with your whole being. Serve only the Lord your God. Respect him. Keep his commands and obey him. Serve him and be loyal to him. Deuteronomy chapter 31, verses 1 through 4.
So be very, very careful who you choose to listen to. Because, if somebody sounds really, really good, they may be the worst enemy you're ever going to have. If somebody's telling you exactly what you want to hear, exactly what you want to hear, be very, very careful. Look at their eyes. Watch their actions. Are they leading you to the Creator? Are they leading you away from the Creator? We have to know who our real enemies are. Their identity might surprise you. Their identity might surprise you. I know people who spend a lot of time listening to various people on social media platforms. Oh, this person's so good. This person's so wonderful. And when you listen to them, if you listen carefully, they're leading you away from what the Almighty has already said. They are a prophet, but they're not a prophet of our Creator. I know that's hard to hear, but you have to pay attention. You have to watch their actions, and you have to know who your real enemies are. And they are the ones who will lead you away from our Creator. Are you going to have some problems with regular people? Oh, yeah. You're going to. There's going to be times where you don't get along with somebody for various reasons. But that doesn't make them your enemy. Might make them somebody you don't want to be around, but it doesn't make them your enemy. A real enemy will lead you away from the Creator. A real enemy will cause you to do things that the God of Abraham said don't do. Be very, very careful. Identify your enemies, and their identity may surprise you. Hopefully, you learned something today. I hope. So until Monday, we wish you many, many blessings, everyone.
Be blessed all.